This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of Stranger Things Season 1. I'll mention this at the end of the video, but I originally was going to plan to review the 3 seasons of this. I just didn't have the time, and this video was a lot longer than I thought it would be. So I'm just reviewing Season 1 right now. There might be a few times that I didn't catch in the video where I mentioned me talking about the other parts of it, but yeah, I will just be reviewing Season 1 in this. So let's get right into it. And just to start off briefly, I really enjoyed this show. I watched it for the first time, I believe, last year, and I had a lot of fun when I watched it. It was really interesting, and I watched it, I believe, for the second time over the last few weeks, and I think they did a really good job with it. And now to go into the more specifics, and taking a look at Season 1, we began with the mystery, all starting off with the vanishing of Will Byers. And with this, I think it's really interesting to see just everything start off and get to the point where we can see what normal is, and slowly see things get crazier and crazier. I've really enjoyed this episode. I think it was a great way to start everything off, introducing characters like Eleven and making everything very mysterious as you're trying to figure out what is truly going on. Continuing on with the season, we just get more and more things going on. We get the mother Joyce figuring stuff out and trying to find where her son is. We get the friends, of course, Lucas, Mike, and Dustin meeting up with Eleven and going to try and figure out what's going on. And we get the beginning of Nancy, and then eventually Nancy and Jonathan going into their own investigation, and finally we get Hopper beginning to figure things out also. And this is one of the things I really enjoy about the show is how they do the different groups of people all doing their own investigations as they slowly move in together and reveal everything to each other. I think it is very interesting, and we are able to piece a lot more together since we are seeing all of their storylines, so we can figure out connections before they do. For example, in this, we are looking at our storylines and are learning through the Mother Joyce, well, that Will is trapped somewhere else. And we have this connected to Hopper starting to investigate into the fact that he is looking into the fact that Will's body is fake and that there's a cover up at Hawkins' lab. And that is what makes this so interesting, is because we were able to figure out connections before the characters, since we're given so much more information, since we learn everything that each group learns. But also we get to look in and just figure out a lot more and go down. Another thing I really enjoy about these groups is we get slight variations of them as we get to see different groups team up and investigate into things across the other seasons, making it slightly different, but still keeping these core relationships intact as we get to see what they are doing. And honestly, instead of looking at episodes, I think it's going to be a lot better to look at the different groups, look at what they discover over the seasons, and then eventually go on and go to the other groups until I talk about when they all come together at one point. And once I do that, I would do it by the groups. So, for example, with the discoveries I'm going to talk about, the groups that go together, and then I'll go to when they all go together. So I'll start off with the main storyline. We follow with the kids. And this is the main because the kids really just take the lead in this, figuring things out. And that's probably the most important part of at least season one. And when we get to see these different variations, it does get interesting. But I think that with the main storyline, we have the ones with the kids trying to go and figure things out, probably followed by Joyce discovering things, and then you could go either way with Nancy and what's his name, Jonathan, and the same with the investigation of Hopper. Yeah, they are all really important and interesting to look at. And looking at the storyline of the kids, I think it is interesting to see how we have just a group of friends looking into the disappearance of their friend, showing how loyal of friends they are and how strong the relationships are, although they do get into some fights. For example, when they are fighting over what they should do with Eleven and if they should trust her, if they should not, especially when she does try and lead them away because she doesn't want to get them into a situation where they could die to protect them. It is very interesting, and there's also some doubts when they think that Will is dead until Mike eventually realizes that they, well, he's not dead and learns that through 11. I think this is a really interesting way to go with things and to have them going investigating because they're kids and not many are going to believe them. You get to see as things begin to change up and get crazy as the people at Hawkins' lab start to catch on to them and they're forced to go onto the run. But that begins to tie into the storyline where they all go together. So just looking at the rest, I really like how we get a setup between the relationship between Mike and Eleven. Well, we also get to see just so many other fun things and how good of friends they are and how they are willing to put their lives in danger to go and help one of their friends even though they do not have to. It's also really fun to see just what they enjoy, different things and references to the time. Although I was not alive during the 80s, it's a really fun thing to look at. So you could just get a little glimpse into what life was like back then. Now looking at the storyline of Joyce, I think that with her, it's really interesting for her to be discovering so much and have no one believe her, make her look crazy, but we know she's right. That's always a pretty interesting thing to look at when there's a person who discovers everything really early, but no one is willing to believe them. And with this, I think Joyce's storyline is real interesting as she's mainly trying to find Will directly, and has almost most contact with him while he's in the Upside Down. When her husband shows up, well, ex-husband, he's just trying to, get money off of the government and other people to, get a wrongful death and claim some insurance money or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And he's kicked out pretty quickly. But I like her investigation, how she's realizing things are wrong, and is able to push other characters like Hopper into their own investigation, which eventually leads to a combination of her and Hopper going into investigation. And looking at Hopper, it's really interesting to see as in season one, He doesn't really believe any of this at first, but slowly begins to realize what's going on. He realizes the conspiracy with the lab and that he needs to go and investigate into many things, which is interesting. He eventually realizes partially what's going on and then goes to Joyce and they begin to go into their investigations together, where they discover more about Eleven, learning who she is and the experiments done to her, and learn how she has powers. And with this, they begin to go investigate more, trying to figure out where Will is, and realizing that they need to get to the kids before the people at the lab go and threaten them. And then we have the storyline with Nancy, Jonathan, and eventually Steve. And with this, it is really interesting to see and look at it as she's just trying to live her life, but this eventually goes and takes her friend as she is trying to be cool and be with Steve. But when that happens, her friend Barb disappears, and things are getting pretty hard for her. She wants to find her friend, and although her friend does die, I think it is doing to see her pushed with this, and she eventually starts working with Jonathan, who is also starting to get suspicious and believe what his mother is saying, which is really interesting. And looking into it, they begin to piece all things together and learning of the Upside Down, with Nancy even traveling there accidentally but being able to escape. They learn of the Demogorgon and are planning to kill it, but they also go and begin to work with the others when they all team up together. Steve doesn't really get into anything besides just, his relationship with Nancy until later on into the finale of the season. Also, some really interesting things happen. Looking at the point when they all combine into one group and begin to give out the information they learned together, we have the point, I believe, in episode 6 or 7, when they all get together and begin to look into everything. They start to discover just what's been going on and pass on their information, which leads them into a plan where Hopper and Joyce do get captured, although it is on purpose so they can, mainly on Hopper's end. Joyce wasn't fully sure. Hopper makes a deal for them to go into the Upside Down and rescue Will, and they'll be quiet about it, and they do agree in letting them in, thinking that they will die. At the same time, there is a message put between Eleven and Will, just to let them know they were coming. And we get to see Nancy and Jonathan go and begin to set a trap to kill the Demogorgon. With this, we get really crazy things as the kids wait behind at the school. As everyone else is busy doing their own thing, things get pretty crazy as the people at Hawkins' lab send out people to go and recapture Eleven, and they're forced to fight him off. At the same time, Steve comes in trying to apologize, but gets quickly caught up with the actions of the Demogorgon and tries to help fight it off. And then finally, as Joyce and Hopper go into the Upside Down, having to look around, and are eventually able to find Will and bring him out. And this gets really interesting as these three storylines begin to come together as the Demogorgon goes to the school. And as they bring Will out, things are getting really bad as the fight gets more intense, and Eleven seemingly sacrifices her life to go and kill the Demogorgon. Although she is able to survive, it is really interesting to see. And with it, things get pretty crazy, and I really enjoy how this ends, with all them being back and unity together, as we get to see them celebrate Christmas and have things return partially to normal. Yeah, I really enjoy Stranger Things Season 1, and with this, I originally had this video planned to be all 3 parts. I guess I forgot to cut any of that, but I'm not going to have the time to record all 3 parts of all 3 seasons, and I'm just going over Season 1. So I'm going to modify the intro, and I'll do Stranger Things 2 and 3 later, well, next week. So yeah, I really do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.